Welcome to Horns Up. I'm Animesh.
And I'm Peter.
And dear listeners, this episode is going to be a bit out of the box because, for first, let's introduce our co hosts for this particular episode, our better halves. Ladies, please introduce yourselves and cue in everyone on your music preferences as well, starting with your side, Peter.
Go for it, Karen Alfonso.
Hi, I'm Karen. So I do listen to metal occasionally, but these days I find myself listening to hip hop and LCD sound system, pop, because that's the only thing that I can block out Peppa Pig in the background. So I'd rather listen to Bieber than listen to Tool at that point of time because I need to write, and Bieber does it for me. So, but yeah, I also do like Frank Ocean. Yeah, Scissor Sisters back in the day. Yep. Very, very weird music taste, I guess.
And occasionally I'll walk into Limp Bizkit, then you can kind of understand what kind of day it is.
That's true. Over to you, Karen.
Hi, I'm also Karen, Animesh's fiance at the moment.
Oh,
At the moment. But
yes.
Yeah. And
Listeners will remember the announcement late last year.
You put a ring
Yeah.
on it.
yeah. My music preference is literally anything except for metal. So this is going to be a very fun talk for me. Because I listen to anything and everything. I think my problem with metal is because I can't hear the lyrics very well. I can't connect because for me lyrics are very important. Right. Anyway. Go on.
Okay. So, why are the four of us here today? Well, Peter and I don't usually use Horns Up to opine about music news, but it's our podcast, and we're going to use this episode to basically shoot the shit about the Grammys. We're not going to be talking about the slap. That's old news now, overdone to death. Instead, this episode stems from something that's really been bothering Peter, right?
Yeah,
Peter,
man.
what's up? Explain your predicament. What's your grouse?
So, see, I'll be honest, right? Like, while in 2020, the Grammys may not mean a lot, and I'm guessing digital music sales, blah, 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 whatever. But at the end of the day, having the tag that you're a Grammy winning artist is something, right? I mean, a lot of hip hop, a lot of pop artists, a lot of people kind of leverage that. And for the longest time, I mean, ever since probably metal has been part of a category in Grammy, it's always been the sideline because it's not been showcased on the main show. Like it's always one of those things that are done before the main show. So this year when Dream Theater won, I was like, what? And it kind of tells you also who's sitting in the Recording Academy and kind of deciding this, because the song that they chose wasn't even a great song. Like Dream Theater fans themselves told me that what they wanted for the Alien, that's like their worst song they could have won it for off that album, right? And for the first year, let's be honest, you had bands like Gojira, you had bands like Mastodon, you had Deftones also in the contention, right? And you'd think that at least they'd go with maybe a younger band. Come on, why is like Dream Theater winning over Gojira or Mastodon, who are like far more popular?
So that's your grouse. Basically, you feel that the Academy didn't get it right.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of says that it's a bunch of old guys just sitting and deciding it at the end of the day, right?
Okay. I'd like to bring in, and this is going to sound weird, but I'd like to bring in the Karens here. Do both of you follow the Grammys? May not be for metal or rock music as such, but just like over the years, do you think the Grammys get it right with most of the mainstream awards they give out, especially for pop music, especially for R&B, especially for hip hop?
Here's my take. I used to follow the Oscars and the Grammys too, because I was very interested in fashion and red carpet fashion.
Same.
So, yeah, we both work in similar industries, right? So I used to follow, I not so much about who were the winners, but just what they would wear and like, okay, yeah, you know that this popular song won and this artist won. But ever since I joined media and I learned how award functions work, and also a huge consumer of Hollywood and Bollywood blinds, like Hello Derma, that's like my
Mm-hmm.
guilty pleasure. I do know that how award shows are rigged and how awards are given just because they want someone to perform at the awards show.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm a huge Beyonce stan, and I found out that she'll only appear and perform when she'll get an award, which is really disappointing. Or if she has new music. But I guess it suits her narrative because her narrative is always she has to control the story and she picks whoever she wants to like art direct. So yeah, I mean like that kind of like all that shine just went from like award shows. So like I just now take anyone who wins like with a pinch of salt. You know that they're major lobbyists of like say the Universal Group or whoever are behind the album sales to get their uh, artists to get a Grammy. So yeah, that whole sheen of award show is just gone for me.
All right, Karen, what do you think about the Grammys? Do you think they generally get things right, especially with mainstream music?
So my take is that what do you mean by what is right? Do you mean by what is right based on audience? The only reason I got into searching about how the Grammys function and how your voting happens and how submissions in fact happens is because I recently, so my friends are massive BTS fans, like massive BTS fans, and they've been after me to like listen to their music since forever. And it's only during lockdown when I had like no other options, but I was like, okay, let's check these guys out. So the journey of BTS has essentially led me to understanding this. But here's my contention. I was like, it is a recording academy award, right? It's not a fan award. So they don't necessarily have to give it to what is the most popular music out there, what is causing change. And this is also what Eminem had to say, that he couldn't believe that 50 Cent did not get Best New Artist when he came out with It's Your Birthday. Like it was everywhere, but it went to someone else. But it's the Academy choosing and it's your peers choosing. So even though you want to blame the houses like Universal and stuff like that, but that is the Academy, right? Those people are, that is the scene, that is the music scene. So is it right or is it wrong? I do not know, but is it lobbyist? Definitely. But even the Oscars are the lobbyists. Like any award show is lobbying. And pop music is fair game essentially because sometimes the popular people win it and sometimes the unpopular people win it, and it is what it is.
I have something to add here, and it's kind
Go
of
for it.
weird.
Go for it.
Is that I don't know how this landed in my inbox. Probably the universe sent it, or this was a sign that we were supposed to do this episode.
Right.
But I got an email exactly 2 days ago. The subject line for the email was, "Did Gojira get robbed at Grammys?" And this, it's impossible because I've never put it out there publicly that I wished Gojira won the awards, right? This is a press release, which kind of again goes to what you're saying in terms of lobbying and stuff like that. But what they've done is sent a press release with actual data. So here it goes, right? Among all the nominees in the metal category, Gojira's song was streamed 12 million times, Shazammed 25,000 times, got 6.9 million YouTube views, and still has the highest Spotify playlist reach, which is, I think, 750 or 750,000. And it then goes on to kind of compare them to who else was there, right? Rob Zombie, Deftones, all of them. There's data to back it, right? Also, like, which was, if you want to put objectively, the most listened to song.
Hold that thought. And this is a question for everybody in the room, starting with Peter. What do you think the Grammys award? What do you think the Grammy stands for?
If you asked this to me a few years ago and I didn't know how things work and all of that, I would say that, oh yeah, it's probably the most popular, or like at least there's some kind of metric, right, that you'd kind of follow. Most popular, best song, exactly, that kind of stuff, right?
You're going in terms of record sales, basically. You're going in terms of either plays or you're going in terms of either sales, right?
Yeah, I mean, that 15 years ago or say 20 years ago, you'd actually say that, this artist in the first month, first year, or radio plays or whatever it is, whatever metric you want to use would be there. Now, unfortunately, that's kind of gone out of the window, right, with digital media and stuff like that. So hence an email like this says to me that they were Shazammed 25,000 times. I really want to know who are these 25,000 people who heard Gojira's Amazonia and like actually took out the app.
Shazammed it.
Yeah.
It's like, what is that?
Yeah, what is this riff? Like the power of the riff compels me.
But I find it so hard to like, I don't know, maybe because we live in India, but the people Shazammed it because like normally you hear music and you hear music.
Yeah,
in the
I don't know
malls
when they heard it,
and
right?
like,
It's
like you'll be like, what is that beat? Or like you hear something from the 90s and it's like some instrumental and I'm like, hey, that's a song, but what is it? And then you try and Shazam it, but then you find out it was like some old like Backstreet Boy song in some new classical kind of way. But to answer Animesh's question, I also feel like the Grammys for the longest time was very American. And
Yeah.
like right now,
It is
like,
still American because
Yeah,
you have to sell in the American market. That's the only way for you to be eligible for putting your nomination in. It doesn't matter where you come from, you need to sell in America.
yeah.
Mhm.
But like the world has opened up. I mean, like coming back to your BTS thing, the world has opened up to K-pop. The world has opened up to so many other musical experiences from different countries. I mean, it's just not British and American music anymore. I mean, the only reason why also BTS attends the Grammys because they need their viewership to view the Grammys on like a major network.
BTS Army will take down the Grammys.
Yeah, they always do. They already did that last year because they did not let BTS perform a solo stage. They put them as a mashup on Little Nas X.
Oh yeah, correct. I
Yeah,
remember
and
that.
then
wow.
Twitter went wild and they were like, BTS deserves to perform solo. And then this year they did perform solo, but yeah. My take is that I don't think the Grammys ever claimed to be a global award show. Like it's always been an American award show, and I understand that. Is it fair? It's like if they want to change it to a global award stage, then that's a different conversation. I agree, America has mixed culture and has a lot of subcultures in it. And this is what I was talking to Animesh about. And I was like, K-pop, even though it has like a massive fan following, like even within America, there's a massive fan following, it's still a subculture. And I also view metal as a subculture. And BTS fans were fully expecting the best pop duo thing to also be on the side and not part of the main ceremony. But as you said, yes, viewership ratings matter. So it was part of the major ceremony, but I'm not surprised. And don't hate on me, but I'm not surprised that the metal category awards aren't in the actual show because if you compare fan listings, you have more diehard fans in pop and country than you have in metal. Like, I'm not saying they're not diehard. I just feel like the numbers are smaller. And also, this is another thing that I was arguing with Animesh about is that most of the metal bands are really old. Like
That's exactly my point, right?
And if you think about it, the Academy basically gets to, so your producers put in nominations, right? So it's the metal industry only recommending to the Grammys who they think should be considered. So now if you're only going to recommend the old people and then the voters of the Academy are only choosing from that pool,
No, 100%. And
Nice Game of Thrones.
Yeah, the old gods
No,
are
no,
not letting the new gods come.
no, and I completely agree. I mean, like, correct me, how old is, hang on, Opeth is 30 years old this year. So Dream Theater is in the range of 35.
Like, obviously, the young people are watching, right? The Grammys for like, there needs to be some connect to the newer generation. And there's like half the artists who were nominated this year, I know nothing about. And I'm 30, so I'm old by this generation standard. So I see why metal's not in the main show, because you're not appealing to the younger generation. You're not really gathering new fans. You'll find the true music metal lovers who will come and seek the music and will go for these off-end gigs. But is the Grammy being biased to metal? I don't think so, because I don't think metal is making enough of an effort to rejuvenate its audience.
I actually kind of buy that logic, because the more I think about it, let's be like absolutely blunt here. The Grammys, it is supposed to be a celebration of excellence, right? But it's a celebration of excellence that's given to you by your peers. The Grammys, make no bones about it. It isn't a popularity contest. It isn't a Critics' Choice Award. It isn't a Popular Choice Award. It is just,
Subjective.
it's a very subjective choice by your peers. And who are these peers? These peers are the members of the Academy.
The people who actually get to vote are only people who produce music, write music, performance, so actively involved in music, but it's not your studio heads. So your studio heads can't vote, your publishers can't vote.
And then the more you read about it, the more you try and understand that for these specialist niche categories, and let's not kid ourselves here, but metal is a niche category.
Yeah, 100%.
100%. The number of people who would be voting for metal would be pretty less.
Yeah, 'cause
right?
You've not updated your pool, so your pool is
We've not. Yeah, it's
dwindling.
I don't know why I said we, but the metal industry as such has not updated its pool at the Academy, and maybe the question really needed to be asked here is the rock and metal ecosystem really doing enough to warrant this validation of sorts for a Grammy? Or are we just happy being the niche? Are we just happy being the contrarian culture that we are supposed to be, that this music is supposed to represent?
You bring up a very interesting point, and I just want to draw parallels to this, right? And Karen, you made like a great point where it's just that entire pool. Just look at all the festivals, and I think that's a clear reflection, right? Great example is Hellfest. It's just like slapped every logo possible or every band that's available in there. And then you look at the headliners, and that's exactly what you're talking about, because none of these headliners are bands that have even been formed in the last 20 years, let alone 10. These are all like 20 plus bands. And then if you don't give the newer bands an opportunity, how do you expect them to get the spotlight? How do you expect them to kind of get that exposure? Festivals, Grammys, very similar situation.
So it doesn't surprise me that bands like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, your legacy acts are still headlining, because those are the biggest bands on the planet at the moment. I would say that's pretty much the same thing that happens in almost each and every genre. I don't think...
like a pop music concert, like
I mean,
Madonna is not...
Madonna. Think about it this way. If today Eminem said that, hey, guess what, Bombay, I'm coming down and I'm bringing the Real Slim Shady tour to India. Hypothetically, I assure you it would be one of the biggest shows ever. The fact that U2 manages to fill up DY Patil Stadium in India, the fact that world over you're still finding people wanting to see an ABBA reunion gig, or ABBA itself releasing and whatever album or whatever that was last year, but the amount of hype it got.
But the young generation is not coming for it. No, they're coming for the U2. I will accept that the young generation came for. ABBA is like our parents are getting
Yeah.
hyped up for it.
That's true.
No, but I'll be honest, right? Because I've seen at least this happen in Dubai, where when I watched Eric Clapton,
Right.
there was a single percentage of people who were around the same age as me. It was 10, 12,000 people. Like, again, my point was more internationally in there because, like, with India, unfortunately, we get
Very few and far
yeah.
between
So you
artists,
might
so
as
we
well.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to Animesh's point, right? Like what you always had with such artists, like I mean, think about it. Judas Priest took Baby Metal on tour with them, right? So you always had the supporting acts in there,
Yeah.
and the reason why those supporting acts were there because people show up for these big acts and get exposed to a lot of these new acts. I'm talking those multi-stage festivals and stuff like that, right? Because essentially a budget you assign to a Judas Priest and their production and everything is probably 10 other bands which are say mid-size.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just kind of looking at it from that perspective.
Is there a remedy for this situation then? What do we expect from the Grammys for rock and metal? Because I do think that the Grammys do manage to get mainstream genres right pretty much most of the time. I mean, of course, you'll have your outliers here and there, etc. Taking away the fan equation, because which fan doesn't want their own artist to win, right? That's a separate conversation altogether. But given the Grammys' track record in pop, in R&B, and in hip hop, even country music for that matter, even the other critical like genres like global music score and
World music.
the Grammys do get it right. My grouse with the Grammys for rock and metal seems to be that rock and metal exists only because as a category it needs to exist. It's almost like a legacy category. It's the unwanted stepchild, which is fair and which is fine. But rock and metal music overall, I do think that it has slipped in popularity over the last 10 years, 20 years, maybe. I think the heyday as such has passed. Maybe it'll come back because everything is cyclical, right? Culture is cyclical. Maybe 20 years down the line, rock and metal will be the best music or the most popular music again. But at the moment, it isn't. I do think that with a lot more push from rock and metal industry or ecosystem, maybe they can use the Grammys for what I feel the Grammys truly is, which is a great PR exercise. All it needs is that one flair from, I don't know, some young band and some label that's really, really, really pushing all their weight behind it. I would love to see a Brian Slagle Metallica journey happen in 2022, 2023, 2024, and make a band that's just come out or maybe has a couple of albums under their belt and make them the hottest thing on planet Earth, because it is possible.
Think about it. Like, I'll give a great example, and we've discussed her on the podcast before, but all rock and metal needs is Billie Eilish.
I would love that kind of a push to be behind some young rock and metal band. I was hoping it would be Ghost.
Yeah,
but
dude. So here's the thing, and sorry, I have to add this since you mentioned Ghost and Machine Gun Kelly so far this year are the highest selling rock and metal albums.
I'm not surprised at all.
Okay, I have a question for the metal people. Are the fans of the metal community really strong and like go behind their artists and go above and beyond? Like, are they like the army type?
So I think it depends, right? Unfortunately, and I'm like sticking my neck out here, the rock and metal fans are our age now. The whole game of what it is like. So rock and metal will sell, people will buy vinyl for a reason because they have that nostalgia factor. They probably can afford vinyl players and all of that stuff. I don't think there's any way to explain logically why 100,000 fans would descend on one place for 4 days with barely any, showers, toilets and stuff like that. That just defies. I think that for me is above and beyond, right? and actually do it voluntarily, like pay money, book tickets a year in advance, flying from all over the world. I think that's above and beyond. Like if you explain that to a BTS fan, they'll be like, why?
Yeah. BTS fans will do more. They fly countries. So I don't know if you know these stories, but so they were not getting radio plays in America, and like that's so the reason BTS is at the Grammys is mostly because the fans made it happen, and which is why they will always thank them. But it's they kept calling in the radio stations and insisted. So in the request hours, they kept insisting that they play BTS songs, and the radio stations kept saying that the listeners won't listen to it because their lyrics are in Korean, and like no one's going to listen to Korean lyrics. And the number of calls that they got was insane. So they just had to start playing it because they realized that there is a huge fan base out there. And once they start getting radio plays, and they also started going to Target and demanding that, so you have to buy the copy in America for it to be valid. You can't buy it online. You can't buy it. Like you have to go to stores. So they went and they kept asking them to bring the records to sell in the store because they wanted to buy it. And like, I know at least 3 or 4 friends who requested their friends in America to buy the album, and they were like, why don't you just buy it online? And they were like, no, buy it in America because it'll only get counted if it is sold in America. So like the level of ARMY loyalty is crazy. Like it's crazy. No, so I was just thinking like if metal has to revive itself, I'm not saying go BTS level crazy, because that is like, I feel like there should be a documentary on ARMY in and of itself, because you have people translating their lyrics live because they don't have these facilities. Like everything that they do is Korean. And in fact, it's only the past 3 songs that they've done fully in English. Otherwise, it's just like an ad lib of English in their song. And frankly, like I never used to, like for me, lyrics are important. So if I can't understand it, I'm automatically zoning it out. Like, yes, the beats and the vibes are fine, but I filter it out. And I think that's what most Americans will also do. And that's what the radio stations and the people selling the music also thought, that nobody is going to listen to Korean music. But then you had the fans live translating everything. So you can find every song with like CC subtitles on YouTube. So they've made the access to it so easy. Like I am impressed by this level of fandom, and I'm like, I can't be considered that level.
This
of
deserves
fandom.
a Cannes Award for digital activation.
It should 100%. And so this is what's really funny is the American Music Awards is mostly based on fan voting. Ever since BTS started selling in America, if you watch or if you go through the awards, they've won everything. And in fact, this year they won the Artist of the Year award. And that is because like American fans will go and like vote once or twice for their favorite artists and stuff like that. BTS ARMY was on it. Like they were like scheduling timings that, because you're allowed to vote once a day. So like there's an alarm set that you have to vote every day. And
what will it take for metal musicians or rock
like
musicians to command that kind of a fan following? Do you realistically think that this kind of music, which really doesn't appeal to the mainstream as such, and probably never will because of the form of music itself, will it even reach a stage? Is that just a fantastical dream that we have?
This is what I wanted to say, that I don't feel metal music and they're very inclusive. And I'll cite my own example. My first leeway into metal was new metal. And the time that I discovered this music, this was 2004, 5. So that was pre-Facebook, so it was forums. And the thing about what I found was that there's so much superiority in metal. Okay. And that's what actually put me off metal. If you're a new metal fan, the death metal fans will be looking down on you. If you listen to black metal, the death metal fans will be like, oh, I don't feel like there's one metalhead that enjoys all spectrums of metal. I feel that they like a few, but there's such a huge superiority complex. This was a time when Orkut was there. Okay, I was on Orkut and I joined these metal communities are not good.
Right.
And my picture was me wearing pajamas with my friends. I was in college and I put those pictures up. And one day I found out that those pictures were put up in that metal community and said, this is a poser. And I was like, why can't I be both? Why can't I
Yeah.
have friends and wear normal pink pajamas? Do I need to wear a black t-shirt and have like,
Eyeliner, that's crazy.
yeah, I mean, I can like both.
Black nails.
And that's actually what really pissed me off a bit, because like the more I discovered music, the more I found out like, I transitioned from like listening to like Korn and Limp Bizkit to like listening to Nile. And every step of the way, and I was just discovering, and I was talking to metalheads and going for concerts, they were like, oh no, you shouldn't listen to this. Oh my god, it's power metal. Oh my god, like it's so old school. Or it's like, oh, they just do this, and that death metal is just blast beats. What do you really like listen to?
I think
And-
this is also why I walked away. But continue.
No, but that's something that happens with every music genre.
No, I
No,
don't.
it does. I mean, no, come
I
on.
will say
When you-
classical music is
Classical
like
music
that,
is like that, definitely.
but pop music doesn't care.
Pop
You
music-
listen to.
Pop music, I mean,
Hip hop doesn't care.
Hip hop doesn't care
Oh.
unless you go into the gangsters. And
Yeah,
it does, right?
exactly.
It depends
That's the
on
difference.
it
But
depends
that's-
on what kind of fandom you fall in with. There are several metalheads who will keep encouraging you to discover new artists, new genres, listen to everything under the sun. And I like to think Horns Up does a good job of that. Not tooting my own horn here, not tooting our own horn here, definitely. But
He's trying to do forced inclusion with me.
no,
But you
it's
think
not.
there's
It's not forced
gatekeeping?
inclusion or anything of that sort. It's
course,
not
of course.
gatekeeping either. But
I know.
gatekeeping exists. Like you're right. There is an overt toxic masculinity kind of an issue in metal,
Yeah.
and that is definitely one of the issues of the genre itself. I would think that it happens in practically every genre that has nerdy fans associated with it.
But
yeah,
does it have to be that way?
it doesn't have to be that
No,
way. It
doesn't.
doesn't have to be that way at all. I completely agree with you.
But
Is that-
I resonate with Karen's experience because
Oh, definitely. I do too.
I was
I've
like,
been a
I'm
subject
staying
of that
away
same
from
thing.
these people. Like it's cool. I'll listen to it when I want to listen to it. But
Yeah, I've openly talked about it on the podcast. How about there are gatekeepers in metal who will subject you to naming each and every song in a particular sequence from an album.
The
And if you
fourth
don't get it
solo
right,
on
then
the
you're not
second album.
then you're
You're
then
not a
you're, then you're not a metalhead. You're a poser,
Yeah.
and that's absolutely bullshit. But that kind of an mentality, I've experienced it in multiple genres, not just in metal. An inner fan will expect everybody else to be able to share their level of fandom.
yeah, that's
The-
true.
yeah.
The diehard fans.
Exactly, but that's where we are coming back to, right? In terms of just being able to gain that big fandom, has metal basically passed its heyday?
I mean, just to kind of summarize what we're talking about, right? And both the Karens are talking about, I'll give a very simple example that all four of us can totally relate to. Metallica. There's always going to be an audience that will say, or a group of people that say, first four albums or nothing else. There'll be somebody who says, I love the recent material. And I think that for me is a band that will kind of just define metal fans also, right? So for me, a good barometer is to just ask somebody what they think of recent Metallica releases. And then you can immediately tell of the kind of person that they are. Are they open to experimenting to new different genres? If they say first four albums, you know they're from Bangalore. Jokes to all our Bangalore listeners. But I'm saying in terms of they want that old school, they want traditional kind of thing. I'm trying to think like which other band really like polarizes people as much as Metallica. Like the moment Metallica became mainstream and did the whole Black Album, you had a huge audience in there. And if we think about it, Metallica is still one of the bands that will pull an audience no matter what, right? Irrespective of whether it's a 20-year-old, because the reason why the Black Album is still one of the best-selling Metallica albums is it's fucking awesome, right? You'd have a 20-year-old who still discovered the Black Album to a 50, 60-year-old who probably heard the first album. There's a band that kind of unites that. And I think those bands are rare. Like there can only be one Guns N' Roses, there can only be one Metallica, there can only be one Iron Maiden, one Judas Priest.
Why does that have to be the case? When you have a pop industry, when you have a hip hop industry, when you have an R&B industry constantly churning out excellent artists, excellent new artists almost every 2 or 3 years with the industry backing them, why isn't rock and metal able to do that? Do we lack the conviction, or are we happy being the niche? Are we happy knowing that, we will possibly cater to kids when they have their adolescent teenage phase, when they need animalistic music to listen to, and maybe a handful of them will continue sticking with us, and that's okay for us to survive, because realistically we've built this lovely ideal that rock and metal is only you do it for the passion, and you don't really make a commercial living out of it. And if you manage to do a commercial living out of it, then well, you're a superstar and you're a rock star. And that's the notion that has come to define this genre of music. I mean, I'm ranting here, but I get that's the problem I have with rock and metal at the moment. And that's why I feel the Grammys don't give it its due, because for the Grammys, it's just not worth it. They're continuing to do it, and that's what's being seen in the nominees and the winners day in and day out.
Also, I will say that, like, since a lot of metal is very antichrist, and let's be honest, Grammy people are white Christian men.
Wasps,
yeah. There could be an issue, and then they cater to what? American.
Well, Little Nas X is
gay.
Yeah, and he's very in their faces, so that's another talking point. Like, is he upsetting the white Grammys?
It's a good diversity check for them also, but he is talented. I'm not gonna. I like his music, and I love that what he does with, like, his whole. Again, I'm speaking from a slightly fashion perspective, and his like.
Tell me.
But like what he wore and like is so great. Like I'm comparing like Frank Ocean, because I really love Frank Ocean, and for a long time he didn't come out with his sexuality, but a lot of people guessed that he was gay. But like Lil Nas is like out, like take my sexuality. Like I don't give a shit. His tweets are like, people were asking him, are you top and bottom? And he was like, off the bunk bed. And it was so hilarious. And it's nice to see that.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
But I think this is what the new generation is all about. So whether it's a metal fan or it's a pop fan or a country fan, inclusion in America right now is the hottest ticket. So if you're not inclusive, your cancel culture is great. So that's coming for you if you're not going to be inclusive. So I don't think the white Grammys and the white Oscars can be as white as they wanted to be, or they were. And it's showing up, but unfortunately...
I mean, the Oscars have definitely worked on their inclusion issue over the past 3 or 4 years.
And you think it's doing better than the Grammys?
Obviously, it is.
If you think about it, this is the circling back to the circling of what is popular in music. After pop music, like the heyday of American pop music, at least my heyday of American pop music, which was Britney Spears and the boy bands and stuff like that, that just took a nosedive. And at that point, hip hop was your niche culture. Like hip hop was bad. Like you shouldn't listen to it. And it's not the greatest. Then you see the emergence of hip hop being mainstream. Like right now, hip hop is mainstream and pop music is trying to get a footing back into the market, because it's flooded with rappers. And I'm not saying they're bad, they're amazing, but you tend to get bored. So now the cycle I think is coming back to pop music, and also more rock in pop music. I don't know if that makes sense. So pop rock, as he told me, like that's coming back, which I've not heard for a bit.
Don't listen to Machine Gun Kelly. Just
no way. No, he's old also. No, now.
So then I guess maybe all this discussion, maybe we are just butthurt nerds, because Dream Theater is a band that I personally am like doesn't do anything for me these days. We would have loved to see Gojira win it. That's not happened. So maybe we are just being butthurt fans about it.
But wait, you would take
There.
Gojira over Deftones?
Oh, definitely. Gojira. See, again, it depends on what you think a Grammy represents. If a Grammy is supposed to represent creative excellence, the Gojira album was definitely more creative and definitely more consistent and definitely more solid than the Deftones release. There's no two ways about it. Also, the Academy needs to make up its mind about what they classify the Deftones as. You can't have an artist which is in rock and also in the metal category. That's just absurd.
Why? Sorry.
Why? Because it's coming from one singular album. It's supposed to be a cohesive body of work. And
this is my question. I feel like new artists are experimenting more. I don't think rap artists only stay rap. Like there are
Right.
lots of crossovers happening. So I feel, according to me, I've not heard any of these albums, but in pop music, I can see crossovers happening very easily.
Yeah.
Having said that, someone should have nominated the Gojira album in World Music Album.
You know, I know.
okay, so final thought to sum it up. I think we can all agree that rock and metal is at the moment super niche, and for the foreseeable future, it'll continue to remain super niche. Is just an award.
No.
It's
Okay,
just
wait.
it is just an award.
I
Right?
can't believe we went like an hour without me saying this, but like at one side, I'm really happy that Foo Fighters won the Grammys, but at the same time, it's my exact same point. Foo Fighters are a bunch of 40 something, 50 something, 50 somethings.
Who else in that category deserves it? I mean, think about it. What, AC/DC? Really? Black Pumas?
Let me open.
Chris Cornell? Sure, great man, great music. And then
I
you
mean,
have the
that's the thing.
Deftones. You comparing Foo Fighters to the Deftones, fans of the music will definitely say is like comparing apples to oranges. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right?
So,
Or wait, if you look at the best rock song category, which the Foo Fighters won again, you have Weezer as competition. You have Kings of Leon as competition. You have
Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney as competition. Thank God the Foo Fighters won it. Or even best rock album. Come on. The competition was again AC/DC, Black Pumas, Chris Cornell, and Paul McCartney. I'm not saying that the other music is bad. Not by a long shot. If you enjoy it, great, cool. But if this is supposed to be, if the Grammys, which they rightly say each and every year, is just a celebration of creative excellence as chosen by your peers, and the peers or the members who are actually voting for it are deeming these, then I agree with Karen Miranda that rock and metal needs to do a better job of pushing and campaigning and making sure that it's not just the new innovative sound that's getting heard, but also that the right decisions are getting made. Because, and this is what I was contending with for the Gojira thing. If you look at any metal best of list in 2021, it had Gojira in its top 5, if not Gojira at number 1, be it fan-led lists, be it critic-led lists. So if that kind of love had found its way to be championed by fans of not just the band, but fans of the genre, you would have seen Gojira win. But that's not happening. Is that happening because metal is too divided? Is that happening because metal is not inclusive? Is that happening because, well, metal just doesn't have the numbers of fan support to really make a difference? I think that's a question for another day.
Next time on Horns Up, get metal producers to sit and talk.
Yep.
God, I would love for that to happen. Why not? She's manifested it. Let's make it happen. This is some homework for us to do. Listeners, I don't know what you made of this episode, but if you have any opinions that you'd like to share with us, maybe join in a conversation. Tell us that we don't know what we're talking about. Tell us that we do actually know what we're talking about. Maybe something struck a chord, maybe it didn't. Share it with us. As always, we're at honsapod.com or on Twitter at honsapod. I'm at Asmani on Twitter.
I'm at Trend Crusher.
My social media is private, but thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Oh well, this was Horns Up.
Horns up, guys.